Hey guys, DIY Maniac John P here. In today's video, we're going to be changing out the front suspension on my 2013 Honda Civic sedan. The first step we're going to have to do in order to access the 3 bolts on the shock tower is we have to remove partially some of the wiper cowling and the wiper arms. This will give us access to those bolts. On the driver's side, we could start by taking this weather stripping and peel it off slightly. You don't take it off the whole way. We can then open, this basically pops out. It's a little access panel and it comes off. And that way you could see inside the shock tower. Now you might be saying, well, John, we have access now to the nuts. Yes, you're right. If you want to go in there with a wrench and take them out, you can. I want to go in there with a ratchet so I could properly torque them upon reinstallation. So we're going to need to remove part of this to get the upper access. So in order to do that, you're going to see here in the corner, there's a section that's going to be able to come out. It's just held in with clips. To get this first section out, you could grab in behind. There's a bit of a lip to put your finger and you're going to pull upwards, and that's going to allow you to take that part off. With this corner section taken off, the next step is close the hood and we're going to remove the wiper arm. First step, removing this plastic cover, rubber cover. You could go underneath with a small pry tool or screwdriver and just pop it off. And that's going to give us access now to the nut underneath to remove the wiper arm. To remove the wiper arm, you're going to need a 17mm to loosen this nut over here. It's not held on too tight, so you just give it a little bit of a go and she'll come loose. Once you've got it slightly loosened, the best way to do this is have the arm in the up position, as you such. This puts this part of the arm in a straighter position to allow it to come off easy. So you're going to go ahead and remove this nut completely, and the arm will then pull off. So we're going to do that now. The nut is removed, and the wiper arm can now be lifted straight off of the spindle assembly. Once the wiper arm is off, this is now going to allow us to take this full corner piece off. Once again, just held in with clips. You could work your way around with a small pry tool and your fingers and basically just pry it loose as such. And it'll pop out of its clips and it comes off, and you put that aside. Once you have all the plastic trim removed, you now have top access to this bolt here, this nut for the shock tower. The second one is right there, so you have access when the hood is closed with an extension, ratchet, and socket. And for the third one, Honda was very nice. They gave us a little access port. You take a screwdriver, you pop it off, and there's your third one down there. So now you have access to it with a ratchet. So that's how you basically get access to those. The passenger side is pretty much repeat of the driver's side, so I'm not going to show you that. The car is now up on jack stands. Yes, all 4 tires are off. That'll be a second part in this video series where I'll be changing the rear suspension. This video focusing just on the front. So coming back, we've removed both wiper arms and everything is prepped to give access to those upper bolts. Wheels are off, and we're now going to commence removing the old strut and disconnecting it from the steering knuckle. The first step now is to remove the end link, the stabilizer bar end link, from the strut itself. It's a 14mm nut. I do suggest giving it some spray with some penetrating oil, depending on how rusty it is. It doesn't hurt. You're going to take your 14mm. If you have an impact, you could try zipping it off quickly. If the spindle of the end link wants to spin with the nut, you will take a 3/16 Allen into your end link, and then take a 14mm box wrench or open end wrench and turn it. Hopefully it'll come right off with an impact and save you the hassle of having to use a wrench. So let's go ahead and remove that. So we got our end link removed. Unfortunately, I was not lucky enough to just zip it off with an impact. I did have to use the Allen key box and wrench technique, but it came off easily enough. One recommendation I'll give is before trying to back off this nut, clean up the exposed threads with a wire brush to make it a little bit easier, and also use some penetrating oil as you go. The next step now is we're going to be removing the brake line retainer or bracket that holds it to the strut assembly, which is this nut right here, and that is a 12 millimeter. That 12 millimeter bolt has been removed, freeing up the brake line from the strut assembly. The last two connections we need to do, and they're just clips, are for the ABS sensor line. So you have two, there's one here, and there's one a little bit further up. And you pretty much just take some long nose pliers and pinch the end to release it, to pull it from the strut assembly. So our ABS line has been disconnected. The next step now is to remove the two retaining bolts that hold the strut assembly onto the steering knuckle. So on the left-hand side is a 19 millimeter, on the right-hand side is a 17 millimeter. Some penetrating oil could definitely be your friend here. A large breaker bar. I'm using quite a lengthy one to get some good leverage. And you're going to remove those. So I removed those two retaining bolts that hold the strut assembly to the steering knuckle. They really gave me not much trouble at all. And so for reference, 2013, 8-year-old, 175,000 kilometers, whatever that is in miles, 130,000 in Montreal, Quebec, lots of salt. Really came off easily, first time they're being done. So now, before I remove the last bolt completely, I kind of want it there just to hold everything in place while I go up top, and I'm going to remove those 3 strut tower nuts. They are 14 millimeter. You have the one that's accessed when the hood is open. For the back two, hood will have to be closed to get in with a ratchet and extension for that one, and through there for that one. And I do recommend leaving one in loosely to support it so it just doesn't fall out, because if you undo all the bottom and then you undo the top, the strut assembly will drop out and could obviously damage your brake lines, your ABS line. So first strut is out, as you see there, lining the driveway. They're not too heavy. I've definitely removed much bigger, heavier ones, so on the Honda Civic it's pretty straightforward. So that's out. I'm just waiting for FedEx to deliver my Rock Auto order, and I'll definitely show you part numbers and explain what I paid and all the different stuff when that time comes. I'm now going to work on the passenger side. I'm not going to show you. It's basically just a repeat of what you've already seen. FedEx just pulled up with my Rock Auto shipment. So as you can see, I went with the KYB Strut Plus assembly. It's the full assembly. So you have all brand new hardware, spring, top hat, everything brand new. One thing to keep in mind on this vehicle, and probably with most vehicles, your left and your right are going to have different part numbers. And really the only difference looking at them is which side the mount is for the brake line or for the ABS lines. So it does matter which side goes which. So for the 2013 Honda Civic sedan, there's the KYB part number for the left driver side, SR4268, and the passenger side, right side, SR4267. It also comes with your replacement nuts for the shock tower studs. You will need to reuse this dust cap that fits on the top of the strut assembly. You'll see that when you take your old one off. Now, in terms of price, it cost me roughly $100 US or 130, 135 Canadian before taxes and shipping for each of these. So I'm going to go ahead now and prep them to get them into the car. Just wanted to point out quickly, guys, not only going by the part number, but if you look on the strut assembly itself, primarily where the sway bar end link connects, you will see the printed letter L for left driver side or R for right passenger side. So that's another way to know which are which if you don't have the part numbers on them. So when you're going to be inserting the new strut assembly into place, You're going to want to be careful of course, that brake line, that ABS sensor line, and just gain everything in. But pretty much what you want to do is you want to slide it up into the shock tower, and you're going to bring it in behind the fastener area for the steering knuckle. So pretty straightforward in that regards. Another easy way to do it would be slide it up into the shock tower first, put at least one of the bolts on just to hold it up top, and then you can start working down below to get the knuckle into place. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. As you can see, I have one of the nuts in the shock tower in place to support the strut assembly. Now when it comes time to line everything up, putting a jack underneath the ball joint and jacking up will be a lot easier than trying to muscle it into place. You got to bring the lower control arm up to line up those two holes into the strut assembly. So that's what I did. I have them lined up, and I'm going to be sliding the bolt through with the nut. On the driver's side, the nut goes towards the front of the car. The bolt slides from the back to the front. Does it matter? I don't know. That's the way it's done stock. That's the way I'm going to do it. So the two strut to steering knuckle pinch bolts are in. On the four-door sedan non-SI model, they're going to be torqued to 85 foot-pounds. Before torquing them down, put a little anti-seize on the threads, put a little anti-seize on the total length of that bolt where it inserts into the knuckle. Make the next guy's job easier. Always think of the next mechanic who has to work on it. So I'm going to go ahead and torque those to 85, and then we'll pick the video back up. So the two pinch bolts that connect the strut to the steering knuckle have been torqued down to 85 foot-pounds. The next step now is to torque the upper strut tower nuts. There's the three of them, and those are torqued on the sedan non-SI model to 40 foot-pounds. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Once the three strut tower nuts have been torqued to spec, 40 foot-pound, you could go ahead and remove that stock dust cover from the strut assembly you took off and put it on through this little access door onto the new strut assembly. It's basically just a dust cover to keep garbage out of there. So if ever you had to disassemble the strut, the nut won't be all rusted. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to finish up down below. We're back down below. Next step is to reinstall the end link into the strut assembly. So you're going to put this threaded stud through the hole in the strut assembly, put the nut on, and you're going to torque to 25 foot-pounds. If you're unable to use a torque wrench due to the fact that that stud is spinning on you, 25 foot-pounds is just very nice hand tight. So once we have the end link in place and torqued to spec, in this case I was able to use my torque wrench and get it torqued down. The only thing remaining was to reconnect the brake line with our fastener, hand tight, and our two clips for our ABS wire. Once you've done that, you're pretty much complete. After that, it'll just be putting the cowling pieces back on and the wiper arm. That's reverse of what you saw when I took it off. As far as wiper arm placement, you're going to have to adjust it properly as it sits on the window and readjust as needed. Now, the big question comes in alignment. Should I get an alignment? The school of thought is anytime you touch suspension components, get an alignment. Now, on this particular Honda Civic, there is no camber adjustment or caster adjustment. The only adjustment from factory is toe in, toe out. Camber is set at 0 degree from the factory. There are no camber bolts installed in those pinch bolts. Therefore, camber in theory should not have moved. But I'm a big fan of anyways getting an alignment every 2 years. I'm due for an alignment, so it works out good for me. So I definitely will get one. So I'm going to do the other side, and it's pretty much a repeat of this side, so I'm not going to show you. So that is the installation and replacement of front strut assemblies on a 2013 9th Gen Civic sedan. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And always remember, guys, clean those bolts, put some anti-seize, think of the next mechanic that's going to be working on this car. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Take care.